Good afternoon to you. I'm Jessica Brown in for Karen Holmes Ward. The Trump administration says it is making good on its promises, downsizing the government bureaucracy and launching immigration sweeps here in Massachusetts and across the country. Many of these moves are being met with pushback, some taking different forms. Protesters are holding weekly demonstrations at Tesla's showrooms, and sales have dropped 13% as CEO Elon Musk slashes the government workforce. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker gave a record-setting 25-hour speech in opposition to the administration's policies, invoking the ideals of the late Congressman and civil rights leader John Lewis. Americans have a long history of using their voices to counter policies and events that they see as unfair, unjust, or in some cases illegal. A show of solidarity can be an effective tool to implement change. The stories of resistance are the subject of a new book called A Protest History of the United States by Gloria Brown Marshall. Gloria, thank you so much for joining us today. We know you're not only an accomplished author, but a social justice attorney, a playwright, and a professor of constitutional law. And this book is very timely, given the circumstances of what's been happening around the country as of late. We know that there's been regular protests over the Trump administration's policies. So how is the chronicle of stories in your book and how they're highlighting, how do they compare to what's happening now?
Well, it's meant for what's happening now because there's always been something happening in this country, and it's always required the power of protest. And I think it's important for us to understand that these times are not that different from other times in this country, from basic rights that we're able to have because of people protesting. Litigation, legislation, protests equals social change.
Now, we don't have video, right, for all of the, decades and decades of protests that we've seen now. In your research, what is the difference, or what has stuck out to you as something that is different that you see now?
What I see now is an impatience. And the impatience is with the process of protest. Before, regular people knew they could go out into the streets and have their voices heard. The First Amendment offers us freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, but most people don't know the First Amendment also has the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's the last line of the First Amendment, a right to petition, ask the government for a redress, remedy of grievances, complaints. So we've always had that right since 1791, but many people rely on it more often in other points of time. We need to go back to relying on asking our government to address our grievances, but we also need to understand that those people who gave us almost everything that we wake up with and take for granted today, they gave it through protest.
You mentioned one of the differences is impatience. That's an interesting word. What do you mean by that in terms of what you're seeing out there today?
Think about this, the 8-hour work day. We take that for granted. That was in legislation in the 1800s. We finally received it in the 1900s. That was through protest again and again and again. The law was on the books, but the employers and business owners refused to give people the 8-hour work day. So now we take that for granted. If we would have said one and done, which is what we want to do now with protests, I went out for a protest once and I didn't get what I wanted, and so I don't think protest is effective. And so I think we need to understand everything from where we send our children to school, to our work day, to the food we're eating with the Food and Drug Administration. Everything we have was based on protests and litigation. It took time for this to happen. It didn't happen overnight. And people want an overnight solution.
I think that's kind of our culture, right? We want things done quickly, right? We want quick results the next day. Let's talk about different types of protests, because we're also seeing economic protests, right, through brand boycotts as well as public demonstrations. Based on the history of protests, what do you think will be the most impactful form?
There have always been protests around different entities, brands. Think about when dolphins were being caught in the tuna fish nets. People stopped eating tuna because they were protesting the killing of the dolphins. The tuna industry changed the way it started to catch the fish. That was a boycott that was very effective. It didn't happen overnight, but it was very effective. And there have been other types of boycotts like that when it comes to our selective buying, is what I like to call it as well. And during the Civil Rights Movement, it was don't shop where you can't work. Something that simple. And so people just did not shop at certain stores that, you know, had segregationist views. So there are ways in which you can make your voice heard. You know, even basic things, just don't do something, you know, like walk a few more blocks. Why go somewhere where you're disrespected? I always say that the individual boycott, individual protest, for example, if you go to a particular store and they disrespect you, don't give them your money. That's very simple, you know, something anybody can do. And that's what the other part of this book is, something everybody can do within your sphere of influence. You can write a letter to the editor. You can not buy a book, or if they're banning the book, buy that book. You know, you can have, you know, book reading in your living room with young people if the books are banned in their schools. There are so many ways in which, you know, you can take a stand.
Absolutely. You know, you explored the history of movements and rebellion in the U.S. Which story for you moved you the most?
Part of it was, and I went to West Virginia, and I went up to Coal Country, West Virginia. Now, here's the sad part. I went up to Coal Country, West Virginia with a friend. I had just come back from Africa by myself, but I wasn't going to Coal Country, West Virginia by myself. So those are some of the issues left over, dealing with, you know, where we can and cannot go in this country. You know, even through protests, we're still in situations in which we feel we have sundown towns in this country. And so, you know, being able to travel, you know, the Freedom Riders. So going to Coal Country, I dealt with, you know, the coal wars, in which there were so many people who died in coal mining accidents. So they had to force the coal mining companies to give them basic protections. And because the coal mines owned the schools, they owned the homes, they owned all the land, if someone stood up and wanted to join a union, that person was terminated. They had to leave their home, they had to leave their school, they even owned the church. The coal company did. So we need to understand unions were a form of protest. And so when I think about something that's made the biggest difference when it comes economically, it's the union. And the fact that employees decided to stand together and demand that they have certain treatments and protections on the job and have a fair wage. These are some of the things that protests have brought about that people have forgotten. They take for granted. There was no, you know, giant benevolent, you know, person who said, yes, here, have a union. No, unions were fought for and people died to create unions. And then the same people who turn around and say, we don't want protests, are part of a union without understanding the history of protest in order to get that union.
And another reason why it's important to know the history as well, to appreciate so many things that we have now. So now we know peaceful protests are protected speech. And if you ask immigrant rights groups, immigrants are also covered under the First Amendment. But now we know what this administration is taking a harder line, right? Revoking student visas because of foreign students' views. This is a bit of a shift. What do you make of this?
During the Civil Rights Movement, there were laws passed in the Deep South in order to undermine protests. There were defamation laws that were passed, and that's where New York Times versus Sullivan has its roots. The case that gives the press the ability to interview all of these known figures and protects them from being sued. So what we have in New York Times versus Sullivan is a sheriff person who was head of public safety who said, you're defaming me, and therefore, and if you think about the 1960s, he was awarded $500,000 in damages against the New York Times and these ministers in Alabama. So think about the fact that we are all protected in the end by the outcome of that case that says that the press, the New York Times, you know, can actually publish these articles about elected officials, and that we regular people, once again, have a right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And we don't have to be 100% accurate and to avoid having a defamation damages case against us.
Man, we can continue talking so much about this topic that's so relevant today. Gloria J. Brown Marshall, author of A Protest History of the United States. That's the book. Thank you so much for your insight and for telling us some of these stories that I think so many might have forgotten or did not even know. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you.